Hi, everyone. My name is Marvin Mempin. I'm one of the APDs here at New York Presbyterian Queens. I'll be moderating this short webinar, and we'll be posting it later for your guys' convenience if you want to reference it for any reason. Feel free to do a private chat to me. I know the name is Sumitra Wood, who's our other APD, but this is her account. So feel free to private chat Sumitra Wood, any questions, and then I'll ask the panel when they have any of the questions that you may have. I'm going to share my screen because I'm just going to do a little introduction of all the people that are here. Yes, see that screen? It's lovely, yes?
Yes.
All right, so this is just a banner for our webinar. If you guys are into the QR codes, I want you to check out quacktalk.org, which is kind of our blog here. It's really the central hub for everything that we do at the residency. It has our schedule, it has our conference duties, it has forms that you use commonly in the ED, it has the rotation guide, a lot of good stuff. There's these rotations too that are mostly educational based, and their residents do create some medical content for us. So there's some great articles and up-to-date stuff and what's going on and things like that. This is my information. My hometown's Yardley. That's my email. Feel free to email me with any questions you may have. I grew up in the Philadelphia area, went out to Chicago for medical school, then matched here and never left. This is our panel today. We have 5 very lovely alumni who all volunteered their time to come talk to you guys today. I'm going to go in order of the years they graduated. Dr. Will Apterback, he graduated in 2013. He's not pictured, unfortunately. He went to the University of Miami, grew up in New York, and is currently serving as the vice chairperson at Southside Hospital in New York. He was actually the person that interviewed me for my position here when he was chief. The next is Dr. Rachel Kleinerman Gober, after she got married. She is a Manhattanite, born and raised, and then after residency, she went down to Miami, University of Miami, which is a team health position. Next is Dr. Michael Chari, who graduated in 2018. He's an MD, PhD, coming from Peekskill, New York. He went to medical school in Mount Sinai, followed by a toxicology fellowship over at Harvard, and now he's at New York Presbyterian Cornell, where he serves as part of the toxicology faculty there. Also, he has also graciously stayed on as our research consultant, and it helps us with a lot of our research needs, as well as how to get good material out into the world. Next up is Dr. David Mish, who hails from Detroit, Michigan. Oops.
Thank you for that picture, by the way.
You're welcome. How can I move this? He went to St. George University. He did an education fellowship for 1 year here at New York Presbyterian Queens. And now he is going to start his position as Director of Simulation over at Coney Island at the end of this week, which is very exciting. Yay, Dave. And lastly, but not least, Dr. Mutaz Musa, who's hailing from Toronto, Canada. He went to medical school in Columbia University and actually transferred in as a second year to our program. And he works in Southern Illinois healthcare system. So that is our panel. Just a quick introduction of all of them. Stop share. And then, so I'm just gonna open this up with a general question to the panel and ask them how NYPQ shaped their career and what we did to positively affect them. Anyone can go.
You want to go in order of graduation or something?
Height.
Oh.
That means Mutaz.
I'll tell you, it's Will. I can actually break the ice on this one. NYPQ was a pretty easy choice, actually. I may be covering a little bit of ground here, but I remember interviewing for residency spots and had interviewed up and down the East Coast, actually, everywhere from Florida all the way through New York. And I sat there having OCD and making my list of choices and having a spreadsheet and trying to figure out what would be best for me. And ultimately, I remember sitting down and thinking, if all of these programs were on the same city block, as it were, which would give me the best medical training? And hands down, it wasn't even a hesitation that then NYHQ, now NYPQ, just came out on top. And I thought that, you know, in my 3 years of residency, my primary focus would be to gain all the clinical skills that I would need to be a competent, confident, and you know, emergency physician who would excel in my field. And quite honestly, there wasn't even a close second. So in terms of how it impacted, I would say that the clinical skills that I got out of my 3 years at NYPQ served me with both a skill set, a level of confidence, and an ability to manage a very sick cohort of patients that I think is honestly largely unparalleled in pretty much most of the academic programs that are out there. And so for me, it really set me off on the right foot to be an emergency doc, which is, after all, the goal.
I'll second what Will said, and I might seem like an odd person to second it, but I think that the clinical training at Queens is kind of unparalleled for a few reasons. And emergency medicine, in my opinion, in general, is caught in a weird place because you want these kind of sick, I don't want to say train wrecks, but you want sick people that need resuscitation. And you're not necessarily always going to find them in like a more community setting, but in a full like tertiary or quaternary care hospital, oftentimes, even though it's called an academic medical center, residents, especially in emergency medicine, don't have the opportunity to do that much. You know, the second you whisper the word lateral canthotomy, 14 ophthalmology residents and fellows descend. So for me, Queens struck a nice balance between not only a population that like benefits from our services, but also one where you have the opportunity to do things and to gain the kind of hands procedural experience and firsthand witnessing that you just don't get. And comparing it with, for example, working in the Brigham system, there are certainly people there who are sent in from the Farber with 3 primary cancers, but the ER doc doesn't have as much chance to do anything. So although it's interesting to read about, I'm not sure that those experiences enhance your skills as much as what I saw at Queens. So that's kind of my embellishment of what Will said.
I guess I'll be the third one to agree that the
bottles of rosé.
clinical experience is
No.
amazing.
Okay. What's with the best cute bottle?
Hello?
Mute yourself. There you go. Okay.
Okay.
Continue.
But I think the other thing that I found that was very helpful at NYPQ was just the number of willing mentors that they have. Everyone there, from every level, from the residents to the academic faculty to the administration, everyone is willing to give you their time, and it's very much a family environment through and through. So you have a lot of different people, no matter what you're interested in. What you're interested in is to find someone that does that at a higher level and is willing to help you get to where they are. And God, I miss you guys. I really wish I was back there again, just clowning around, but still able to like have my mentor just right next door and say, hey, how do I tackle this? Or the clinical experience was amazing, but the sense of family and community and mentorship was something that I miss a lot.
Yeah, you get treated as a person at NYP Queens, not like a number or something, which is nice.
I'm not really supposed to be participating in this panel, but I am also an alumni in 2016. Just so you guys know, though, too.
Stay out of this, Memphin.
Just to reiterate, like the familyness that this program kind of have. Like there are people here too. This is Dr. Anita Louie. She's the clerkship director. She was class of 2018. Dr. Niklani, who's our simulation director, is over there too. 2017. So there are a bunch of classes. It's a family. We're all here kind of hanging out together during this webinar, just to see everyone and talk to, like, it's a Zoom reunion call as well. So just to piggyback on Dave's little, this is kind of a family thing. It really is a type of family.
100%. I never left, had my schmuck of a husband, had to move to Florida. So unfortunately I had to come with him, but I for me, when I was ranked, seems like forever ago, I had rotated at Lincoln, Methodist, a couple other near programs. Lincoln, in terms of volume and, trauma center and acuity, was very similar. What just in my interview day, you could really see the autonomy, the camaraderie, and clinical skills that the residents were just kind of like humming around doing was unlike anything I had experienced in my rotations. And even since, I have worked in hospitals down in Florida, in Miami, though I don't work a lot with residents, the University of Miami is basically a resident-run hospital with every other specialty imaginable. And I have found that, the clinical skills that I still feel like I'm functioning as a resident, because you can really pawn anything off on anyone else, like Dr. Chari was saying. But, for me, I feel like because I got those skills and I focused so you were able to focus so well on them throughout residency, that you can really take them with you anywhere, and it's a huge asset. So that to me made it an easy rank #1 for me. I wish I were back there.
So kind of just piggybacking.
I suppose I'll go last. Oh, go ahead, man.
Oh no, go. Musa, go.
Go ahead. Sorry, I've got a bit of a lag. So I guess for me, it was a pretty formative choice. So for me, it's conceivable that if it wasn't for NYPQ, I wouldn't be practicing medicine. And as you mentioned at the beginning, I transferred in from another program. And so there were a couple of other factors that went into my pursuit of this career. I had to make sure that I had visa sponsorship and things of that sort. And I can tell you that what I got at NYPQ, that I guess in addition to the things that everybody else mentioned, the clinical exposure, the patient population, the lovely balance that Chari mentioned between autonomy and having some specialists available to learn from, was the advocacy and someone championing sort of my cause. Because it wasn't by any means a foregone conclusion that I would get the necessary paperwork, but Parikh, Lily, the GME staff who were there when I joined NYPQ were ridiculously, powerful champions and relentless and on top of their game, and just advocated for me throughout until all those I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. And then thereafter, because the challenge doesn't just end with residency, it's with placement thereafter, I saw really kick-ass advocacy from the leadership again. So it's, I'm indebted to them, for the rest of my career, for those 3 years or so that I was there, two years or so that I was there. They took the necessary actions to make sure, how to stick around and finish my training and get a great placement. And I think that championing isn't just unique to me. It's not because I needed some particular paperwork. It's something they do for everybody in the specific way that resident needs. And I think that's something that I can't assume it exists everywhere. It's something about the personality traits at NYPQ. It's about the collegiality, the family bonds. So they go to bat to you like you're one of their own, because you are one of their own. And
yeah, I think that's probably what shaped my career was my time with Parikh and the rest of the family at NYP.
It's been a long time since I was interviewing, but I, like, even now reflecting back on it, there was no place that I ever remember where there were like so many alumni that stayed on staff, which I think is a real testament to the program. I mean, people fight to stay there. I mean, I think Manish, Dr. Sharma would hire everyone if he could. I've never, like, I don't know what the numbers are, but like a huge chunk of the faculty there are graduates.
Kind of just following up with that, with a fun question. What was your favorite memory here at NYPQ HQ?
That's so hard. Such a hard question.
Other than the wine trip?
You can say a couple. You can
San
say
Diego?
Unincriminating moment there, Mish.
I'm gonna think. Oh my God.
I think my favorite procedural moment has to be with one of the attendings, Richard Shin. We had this guy who, besides the fact that Richard Shin is an attending, is a nice combination of humorous and effective. We had a guy who got, actually punched in the eyeball. And so I got to do a lateral canthotomy. And then the following night, his friend or his sympathetic eye friend or whatever also got hit in the eye. And so I remember getting actually doing 2 lateral canthotomies with Shin. And it was a very low stress thing, actually, even though it's, kind of a rare procedure. And Shin at the end of it, so this attending had been like, you know what, I've been close to one, but I never do it. But I gave you the opportunity to do 2. And so not only did the situation arise where you could do it, but you get to do this cool procedure twice on different people. And the attending supports you throughout of it, and you're not muscled out of the way by ophthalmology or anything of the sort. So that's something that I remember, and, maybe not the most enjoyable thing, but the coolest thing, and something I think of pretty often when I think of Queens.
Because it rings a bell, and it's something that sort of ties in, just because it is a rare thing for those of you guys that are applying to emergency medicine programs. Lateral canthotomies are these things that most emergency physicians go and do maybe 1 in 30 years of practice or 20 years of practice. And so I was not going to bring up the example. It's certainly not the most memorable, but to me, it's telling of the program, is that as a second-year resident, I had actually at that point, oddly enough, done so many lateral canthotomies that we had a brand new attending that was starting from another program in the city. And my attending at the time actually had me teach this attending how to do a lateral canthotomy in the actual trauma bay. And then probably about 6 months later, a similar occurrence occurred. And we had ophthalmology there. And in many larger institutions, ophthalmology is the one that's going to handle lateral canthotomy. And the fellow came and looked a bit apprehensive. And I remember being in the trauma bay and saying, "Are you okay? Do you need anything?" And they confided in me that they had never done one before. And I said, "No worries, I'm your guy." And then proceeded to essentially instruct and teach the optho fellow how to perform same said lateral canthotomy. Now, this is not without mentorship, right? And I think that's important to note, is that NYPQ, to me, in many ways, is this gem of a program because of the level of acuity that you get. And as you can see, you have 2 random alumni talking about this exceedingly rare procedure together with, frequency.
Yeah. But there was no collusion between us.
Yeah, you're correct. Very correct. Yes. I've never seen this man before in my life. And at the same time, though, there is this advocacy, as we sort of talked about before, where I had my attending in both cases standing alongside me, supporting me the entire way, debriefing with me afterwards. And then this actually became something that was supported within the program, not the actual lateral canthotomy, but you could tell that there's this constant support level. So even when you're in these stressful situations, you're not abandoned and left to your own. There's never a time where you're in a position and you don't have an attending or a very competent senior resident there to literally catch your back and hold your hand as needed. And so it builds this collegial, familial type of residency program with this massive high acuity. And I rotated there as a student, and it was very obvious to me, and I'm sorry that this year a lot of you don't have the opportunity to do that. It was grossly obvious to me in my time there that, you know, as I said, this would allow me to be the best trained emergency physician in an environment that's going to be consistently supportive, constantly supportive, in which you do have your mentors there, and you have clinical mentors and professional mentors. And so I don't have a favorite moment. I just, the whole thing was a favorite. So there you go, and an odd tie to random lateral canthotomy experiences.
We all share our lateral canthotomy stories.
I did one.
Other parts get injured too. But.
Rachel, I really think that a wine trip story is due here. But you're on the panel, not me.
I mean, I guess, we do an annual wine trip in the spring every year where we take a party bus to the North Fork and go to 3 or 4 wineries. This is one amongst like many wellness activities that we do throughout the year. I mean, I don't even remember which year was which, but I think it was my last year. And I think at one point it was me, Neo, Parikh, and Anita and Anika were frolicking down the vineyard, holding hands and dancing and drinking at the same time. I mean, these were very frequent occurrences, whether we were at a vineyard or not. Great opportunities for us to bond. They happen frequently. And now, I mean, since I've graduated, it sounds like everyone hangs out every Wednesday after conference. This was such a huge part of the program. And one of my best friends from college did emergency medicine in another program in New York as well. And she would always just like marvel at the fun activities we would do together and how much fun we had with each other, and attendings, residents, faculty, nurses, techs. I mean, everyone would participate in these activities, and it was really fun. I think it's unique. I mean, I work with some residents now. I mean, no, I've never seen another program who does anything like it. It's so much fun. I don't have one wine trip story that is a memory for sure. But tons of stuff like that. And that's what made the program for me. And we're all still close today. So.
I mean, I think these are all things that you can only find at a program because we aren't something with like 20 residents a year where every single attending is going to know every single resident, and you're going to have time to be able to form these bonds with everyone, because you're not going to go months without seeing an attending or another resident and not remember their name, or you have time to actually develop true friendships and relationships with all of these people throughout all levels of the hospital. I think it's something unique to a program like ours that's a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
I came from a program with 84 residents, and there are advantages to that, I suppose, because you've got a wide alumni network and a lot of people to learn from. But there is no denying that just the feel, the vibe, the energy of the program is entirely shaped by the level of intimacy you can have with your core residents and the attendings and the leadership. It's just it's hard, no matter how hard you try, to build strong relationships or meaningful attachments to a group that large, 84. I think there's a social sort of theory that we have more than 100 or 150 strong bonds, and if you try to do that in a program with 84 residents, you'd have to forego your friends and family outside of residency. So yeah, I think that if you had the choice and all other things being equal, I would tend towards intimate, smaller programs, for the pleasure of it, the fun of it, the strength of the relationships, and what that translates into later in your career. Strong relationships translate into people you can lean on, people who can again endorse you, advocate you in a sort of meaningful way.
Nishi?
As far as favorite memories, it's not from residency. It's actually from my fellow year. I remember this case where I had like a really bad upper GI bleed case with one of my residents. It's an overnight shift, and both of the attendings that were also there that night, I think Rich Shin was working peds and Moonian was working on the other side in the main, came over and were kind of heckling me while I'm while my resident is resuscitating this patient, and we're all kind of there instructing. And I guess it just reaches back to that same sense of family and community that I don't think I would have gotten anywhere else. It's like, these are essentially my friends at work who can be there as a lifeline if I need them. And that's why they came over, because it's like, hey, anything you need, anything we can do. We see that this guy's pretty sick. You gotta need a lot of resources. And of course, I didn't want to give them my patient because this is fun. So I had to step back. And at that point, when we saw that my resident was handling things very well, it just became a reason for us all to be able to watch together. And I guess for them to give me a hard time, but that's fun.
Awesome, guys. What made you guys originally rank NYPQ when you guys were students?
Oh, this one's easy.
Yeah, I mean, mine, for me, it was just well, you rotated, Mitch. Mine was just what I was looking for in a program overall. New York, large volume, trauma center, small program, high acuity, medical and trauma sick. And then a lot of it is just, is just vibe when you go on the interview day. And that's not something you can really describe, but I think all of us have kind of painted the picture of what we experienced for however long or little time we spent at the hospital on the interview trail. It was very easy. I actually interviewed, my interview day, I was with Scro, one of my graduates, and and we matched together. We rotated together at downstate for surgery also. So I mean, clearly match made in heaven. So it was a very easy choice for me. Very easy.
Yeah, man, I think those are all, what Rachel said, those are all the things that we need to check off on our list of what makes an emergency program great. Is you want that acuity, you want the right patient population, you want the opportunities. And then the real big thing is just the sense of being and belonging. I remember for me, it struck really hard a lot on the interview day, but even more so when we had the like the residents like get together, where we were at some bar in New York. And I remember I came there a little bit late because I hit unexpected traffic coming from Jersey, which is where I was at the time. And Rachel made a spot for me. She was she was about to become the chief resident that year. The entire residency that was there. It was remarkable. Even I remember JM was let off late from, I think he was on the MICU, and he showed up in his scrubs just because he wanted to be a part of everything and didn't want to miss out on the activities. And being able to be made like I felt like I belonged there right off the bat, and not just like an observer as the medical student, but it was a sense of family that I didn't feel anywhere else. And I just knew that this is where I belong.
Pre-COVID, going out in scrubs is not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Post-COVID, everyone's gonna stare at you like a little more closely.
But what if you have figs on? Yeah, I don't know, Marvin, was your question like where did we put it in the rank list or just our general?
Why'd you rank us?
Oh, yeah. Almost exactly what I mean. Almost exactly what Rachel said, which is I knew early on as the dual doctorate suggests that I was going to probably do a fellowship and probably spend more time in like research or at least less clinical stuff. But I still wanted to be a solid doctor, and I didn't think of any other place that like would be nearly as, to put it, to use a very med school phrase, I couldn't think of another place that would be nearly as high yield as Queens. And also, you know, you may hear Dr. Sharma, the chair, and Dr. Parikh say this, but it is true. I mean, yes, it's New York, but people are nice, and they do have your back, and there is a sense of community there, and so those two things really cinched it for me.
So kind of a question to the panel again. What was like one of the most unique things that you found about Queens in this program? Or what's one thing that you guys miss now that you all are moved on to different hospitals?
Oh my God, everything.
Yes, there's quite a bit. There's quite a bit. Food, Flushing food. I don't think there's any food anywhere else in New York City like Flushing food. You know, our area of Queens, you know, any program in New York City will lay claim to diverse patient population. That's like, I think PDs have it tattooed on their chest somewhere, diverse patient population. I think as a rule, what that means is some of our patients aren't white. I think that's the translation of that. But it's not all NYC programs are created equal and with respect to their patient population. Flushing is really quite a fascinating place. And I will confess that before I came to NYP from the Bronx, I was working in Upper Manhattan initially, and then for med school, and then it was the Bronx for residency. And we have, you know, quote unquote diverse populations. But I will say the vast majority of my patients at the time were Dominican up in Washington Heights, and in the East Bronx, African American, Hispanic. But Queens is, I mean, good Lord, I think it's a record holder, isn't it? It's even though it's an East Asian population, ostensibly the patients themselves are super diverse, and just sitting at the doctor station and surveying your beds from whatever 1 to 7, you will likely hear 2 or 3 or 4 languages being spoken at any given time, a bunch of iPad interpreters at any given time. And what's interesting isn't just that they hail from different parts of the world, it's what that translates into in terms of clinical presentation, in terms of who's stoic and doesn't come in until they're basically on death's door, who's oh, well, I need to be careful. But
who has a different,
you know,
threshold?
it's interesting. There are different thresholds. Exactly. That's the way to put it. And even just exposures to, you know, who's coming in from overseas and is coming in with TB or malaria and what have you. It's, you know, a lot of the infectious diseases that are textbook diseases for other programs are real diseases for us, and we take care of them not rarely at all. I mean, schistosomiasis, malaria, TB are not totally unheard of. So, I mean, in any case, it was an awesome patient population from that regard. But what I miss by far the most is the food.
What was your favorite restaurant? What's your favorite dish?
Oh gosh, White Bear. White Bear.
The dumpling?
They're $2 dumplings with absurd, I don't know what that sauce is, but I could bathe in it. It's, and there's that
I can-
popcorn chicken place? Area. New World Market downstairs. Just pick a restaurant at random and figure out what you're eating later. It's wonderful.
Your old market just opened up. Or
Oh, that's awesome.
reopened.
I'm really glad. Yeah. Legend chicken. That's what it is.
Mm.
Oh, and about 1,000 bubble tea places. Probably one for every resident.
Sorry, Mish.
What's the question? What we missed the most?
Yeah, what was the most unique about us and what you miss about us?
God, I really don't want to like rehash the same stuff. You know what I miss is the or at least I took for granted, I should say, the interdepartmental relationships. Like each place you go, there's kind of a different vibe between the different departments, whether it be surgery or ortho or whatever, OB. Um, and I will say, pretty much hands down, every single department that I interacted with was really easy to get along with. I didn't hang out with a lot of the surgery residents as much, but I liked them. I liked a lot of them, and we would have chit chat, and we were just like, it was a very easy relationship between IM, surgery, pretty much every single service in the hospital. Um, and I think a lot of it came from not just the residents, but the chair people. There's not a lot of people trying to step on each other's toes or act like they're bigger than they are because they feel insecure. I don't know what it is, but I miss that sense of cordiality between all the departments, which I've not seen at some other places I interviewed or
Yeah, I'll actually second that. You know, we talk about the residency as sort of a family and a supportive environment. Is that even the residents within the hospital and the different departments are actually very supportive of each other. I remember as a resident, anytime I called a consult or spoke with a different service, when they physically came to see the patient, I would ask them to either teach me something that they thought every emergency physician should know, or if it was a resident, I would ask them to teach me something that they learned new today. And I still do that to attendings when they come in hospitals that I work and I have a sort of surgical or attending or an ENT attending, somebody come by and I'll say, teach me something you think every emergency physician should know, or teach me something that you learned new today. And they're usually caught quite off guard by that. Whereas at NYPQ, people just rolled with it and said, sure, let me teach you about this. And they would take the 30 seconds or a minute to actually help kind of, you know, expand your horizons a little bit. So there's definitely this interdepartmental sort of hospital-wide support structure and sort of friendliness that I think is definitely unique to both the program and the building itself.
And somewhat related to what Will is saying about the kind of larger building, I think one thing I'll miss, and this is, you can quote me on this, and I'm not on drugs, is I will miss the administration. And that's like a weird thing to say, but I find that Dr. Sharma is unique. I mean, as I've alluded to a few times, I'm kind of a dyed-in-the-wool researcher and, you know, talks person, which are usually people who do not get along with administrators. But Dr. Sharma, I found a lot of how he explained the business side of medicine and how he said, you know, look, we have to keep the lights on, and we have to be conscious of the costs, but this is also how we can still do good medicine within these financial constraints. Like, that was a very kind of ethical and transparent way of going about things that I haven't necessarily seen duplicated at subsequent institutions. And I think that was a very valuable insight into the business of emergency medicine, which although I'm not necessarily sure that I'll primarily use that, I think it's a valuable insight to have, especially if you're going to primarily go into community or locums medicine for a bit.
I think just one final question I have for the panel is give us your last plug for New York Presbyterian Queens.
Oh
What
my
would you
God.
say to all these people who are trying to apply? How would you sell it to them?
I think that a couple things. I think if you narrow it down to training in the Northeast, now that I've spent some time in South Florida, you won't get better training. It just doesn't exist. There's a work ethic that's different. There's an attitude and respect for sick people that is different. I only work right now with third-year residents rotating from Jackson to University of Miami. Sorry, I shouldn't. Well, everyone knows where I work, but there is just
No, I was just like, I forgot that they had started a residency. Yeah.
right. And part of it is a new program, so like I can't really speak much to what goes on at Jackson, but have been on multiple occasions very disturbed by the lack of enthusiasm and excitement about what we were doing in the emergency department, and just kind of trying to just sort of plug through your shift, which as a resident, I think is actually totally unacceptable. And really kind of as an attending who likes what they do, I think is unacceptable. And I think that the cultivating that like excitement and enthusiasm for what we're doing, and a big part of that is really just enjoying being at work. Like if you take the patients, like Mish said, like you're with your friends at work. Work was a pleasure. And it didn't feel like work. It was fun. It was collab. The patients were fascinating and like so sick, and you just take that with you. And I actually left my first job, and I think about this now a lot more, like what I'm looking for where I work is I couldn't like bond with my coworkers, and I didn't enjoy being at work because of that. I mean, the patients in a vacuum are the same, right? But like if you, with that energy, I think you learn more, you absorb more. And everything I do, I think about Queens. I mean, I think about, I have a lot of sick patients where I am, but you have just great respect for them and what you're doing for them. And I think that you'd be hard pressed to find that in other places, at least my experience with other residents and other places I've worked. It's just a different attitude. And I would just say that residencies seems like such a weird period of time, but it's really important and really special. And I think Queens is just nails it. The support you have, the people you're working with, the patients you're going to see. I don't think there's anything like it. I'm only out 3 years, so I don't have like a ton of other experience. I've worked only at 2 hospitals down here, but I think that, I think I can speak to that.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I can go next. So that's probably the most important question. So I mean, I'd like to just get down sort of to brass tacks in terms of what sort of decision-making process is for prospective residents. Here is basically just my opinion, but this is my take. So if you're picking between 3 and 4 year programs, I'm biased. I transferred in from a 4-year program. I think it's a no-brainer, frankly, for many, many reasons. And rather than get into them individually, I'm happy to leave my contact information. Any of the students can reach out to me. But I think in terms of what you might want to do after residency, you want to go straight into clinical practice, you want to do a fellowship, you want to do locums, you want to do administration, whatever you want to do after residency, whatever your long-term goals are. There's a path for that. In fact, a facilitated, clear precedent within NYP. If you want to stay in administration, there's a path for you with a fellowship there. If you want to go into a competitive fellowship, we've got a perfect example here with Chari. We've got, if you want to go straight into clinical practice, there is plenty of precedent, plenty of people to learn from in that regard. So in terms of, you're going to be spending 3 years somewhere, right? The location. Are you going to be comfortable living there? You've got New York City, you've got Queens. arguably the most interesting borough of the city. You've got an intimate program that will make that 3-year time frame pass more quickly. People you can, enjoy being with. Obviously that's a function of who ends up matching with you. But I really think that the fact that it's small forces everyone to be sort of to put their best foot forward and to sort of let their guard down and become friends and family members more than just workmates. What else? What are some of the other things? In terms of, are you going to be worked to the bone and basically just use as cheap labor? Everyone here, I think, can attest that Parikh and the rest of the leadership are super, super receptive. And we've got the annual retreat. Well, he'll go over the entire survey in excruciating detail of what everybody said and like quotes from every resident and how he's trying to address those specific, points of feedback. So I came from a program, again, in the Bronx, where I was, again, one of 84 residents, and NYP is by no means a cush program. You don't want a cush program. You're not going to learn anything, but it is by no means a factory either. And I think the work-life balance was struck really nicely. So just all of those very practical elements that you think about when you think about residency, I think it's just, it meets and exceeds expectations. So just from, we can talk about favorite attendings and how interesting the patient population is. And we're all going to agree that, you're going to see a lot of pathology pretty much everywhere you go. But from just the tangible elements you have to think about when you're picking a residency, it's really, I think in hindsight, as good a choice as I could have possibly made.
Yeah, I'll sort of echo. I think you can't overlook the fact that the program has the best residency program coordinator in the business. She's over there with Marvin.
Oh God.
Lily is over there. There you go. Yeah, as a core and a backbone, but you have to sort of think to yourself, it's very easy to think past residency and the steps you want to take afterwards, because we're in medicine, right? And you spent your whole lives trying to plan your next step. And it's important to take advantage and understand and appreciate what's in front of you at the moment. And so with residency, you shouldn't be thinking about what are you doing after residency. Residency itself is something you need to actually fully appreciate in real time, the entire time. And so when it comes to that sense of clinical training, I'll say it again, there was no match. NYPQ was #1 on my list for that fact. And I am still confident in that from a clinical exposure, that it is a fantastic program to, bring out absolute stellar physicians. I will tell you that for my path, in terms of flexibility and support within the program, not only do I still have mentors that I had in the program that I still actually use as mentors to this day, but towards the end of my training, I thought to myself, well, I had an interest in administration. Then there was no administrative fellowship, and sort of worked with the administration there to actually develop and completely make anew an administrative fellowship. And it shows the receptivity and the support that exists there, that I actually wound up doing an administrative fellowship at NYPQ that they allowed me to develop. They supported me through, and went on from there to work in essentially one of the highest acuity emergency departments in the Northeast for about 5 years, confidently, comfortably, with actually alumni from the program who were stellar, and then went on to do some sort of more administrative things and some larger teaching things, and that's kind of what I do to this day. I think you know, for the most part, you're going to do one residency. And so the advantage is no matter how much effort you put into trying to make the decision, you're probably never going to know any better. I will tell you that there are a couple of folks I know that had switched into the NYPQ residency from outside residencies. I know one resident that went for geographical reasons, had to switch out of the residency to a different program. And all those folks that actually know the other side of the fence have said with confidence time and time again that NYPQ is a fantastic program that's going to give you everything you guys need to be a successful and happy emergency physician, and allow you to then branch out past that if you have other interests as well. So take the time, think about it. I know it's a difficult year for you guys in terms of being able to, you know, gather information and sort of a lack of rotations and exposures. And for that, I do not envy you guys one bit. But you have a whole panel of folks up here that I think have, you know, essentially, it's almost as if you could have just cloned us to say the same thing over and over again. And I will tell you guys that I know none of these folks really, because I'm the old guy on the panel that didn't have a whole lot of interaction that way. And it's fantastic to hear that even my thoughts from years ago are exactly mirrored and echoed in people that just went through the program. And that just goes to show what a solid, strong, and good program it is. So that's it. You will not make a mistake or have any regrets for matching it.
I mean, that's the culture. People always talk about like trying to make a culture change at places where things are going bad and how difficult it is to change culture. Luckily, that's not a problem we have at NYPQ. The culture is amazing, and people who come through have the same experience year after year after year of it just being an amazing place to train with a lot of engaged people that are really invested in your academic achievements and furthering your goals. And I think it's difficult to find other places, and a lot of places will want to be like NYPQ, but it's difficult. You can't recapture that magic.
I think that was beautifully said. Well, that's all the questions I have. I'm going to open it up to any of the students that would like to ask any of the panelists any questions. But no pressure. If not, I'm just going to plug in. I'm going to plug in a couple of things. We do have a couple of, we have 2 more webinars coming up on September 16th. That's going to be talking about our specialty tracks and fellowships here at NYPQ. We do try to tailor, you know, your residency towards you and your interests and help you succeed most in life. So the tracks really are a way for you to explore your interests and try to figure out how I can get, you know, my research done, how I can look like a good applicant if I want to do a simulation fellowship, an admin fellowship. And we'll put you in these tracks and match it with these mentors that will help you succeed in the future after residency. And then our 4th and final webinar is Wellness at NYPQ, which is September 30th. That's going to be hosted by our very lovely Dr. Nikolani here, who is our attending wellness champion here at NYPQ. Yeah. Well, no, you have to quarantine yourself for 14 days because you're from Florida.
Damn.
But hopefully we I know this year kind of is this year is a very difficult year for a lot of people, a lot of residents. We unfortunately don't get to do your socials like we used to do. We don't get to do the interviews like we used to do. But if for the people who are local to the New York area, I think our residents are going to have some informal things that if they want to do to meet up. I just to figure out, you know, like Will said, the camaraderie here is one of the biggest selling points. and unchanging for the end of time. We do have, if you go to quacktalk.org or you scan that QR code at the beginning, which I'll put up one last time, you can get to our Instagram, you can get to our Twitter, and those are really big ways that we can keep communicating with each other. So does anyone have any final questions?
Marvin, I just wanted to say thank you to all the panelists for these
Oh,
students
yes.
and applicants who don't know me. I'm Neo Yaneda, and I function as the associate residency director here. I also a graduate, but I just wanted to say how good it was to see you guys, and you are all like major inspirations to me. I feel fortunate to be able to do what I do every day because of you guys, and it's been an honor to train with you, to train under you. Will was my chief resident and also my boss at my first gig after residency. I think the youngest chairman ever. Or to get to have the honor of teaching you, it's been amazing, and it's so good to see you guys. That's my piece.
Likewise.